Okay, many thanks, Philip, for that. A great way to get us started today. As you can see from the chairs, the furniture being brought on behind me, we are shortly going to move on to our next panel discussion, our first panel discussion of the day. And this is all about AI, okay? It's probably, AI has dominated every conversation we've had here over the course of the past couple of days. It's dominated every conversation I've had in the enterprise space for the past few years. I'm sure it's been no different for you folks as well. But talking about it is one thing, actually implementing it is another challenge. And one of the big blockers to getting it right is this question of infrastructure, how we build the systems to do enterprise AI at scale. And that is what our next panel is here to discuss. We've got some great panelists lined up for you. We've got Domingo over at Infominium. We've got Christina at the Metaverse Institute. We've got Daniel at SNGLR Group. And here to lead us through that conversation, we've met him already. He was here yesterday. Please put your hands together for your moderator and your panelists. We have from J&J Innovative Medicines, Florian Kruger-Herbert.
Good morning, everyone. You're doing good? Anyone feeling well? Everyone? Okay, perfect. So our first panel discussion today, again, I'm moving the chair like yesterday, feels like irregular. So we're going to speak now about the infrastructure organizations that have to adopt AI, okay? And while we have a lot of AI topics going on in the news and everywhere, it always focuses on the agents, it focuses on the applications, on the algorithms. But what we try to cover today is actually the infrastructure piece. So a little bit similar to when you're building a house, like you start with the basement or the shell construction, or in German said, the Rohbau. We're going to look at everything for AI implementation, covering everything from electricity to data centers, but also how it merges with the blockchain integration and cybersecurity. I'm very proud to have an esteemed group of panelists with me today, and I would now like you, Christina, to go first. Just say a sentence about yourself and also mention a little bit of a fun fact or something personal so that we ease it up a little bit.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Christina Yan Zhang, CEO from the Metaverse Institute. I also co-chair the United Nations International Telecommunication Union's task group on pre-standardization for the Cityverse, using AI, digital twin, Web3, and other technology to create what we call people-centered, planet-friendly digital future. An interesting fact about me, as you can see, I was made in China, like lots of products you can get in the supermarket, reinvented in the UK. Although we don't offer buy one, get one free policy, so I'm the only child in the family. Nice to meet you all.
Like it. Daniel, you go next.
Yeah, hi, Daniel. I work at SNGLR Group. We're a small, funky cocktail of a VC, a tech lab, and we do advisory. And the focus topics that we do is longevity, smart city, smart mobility, and we overlay that with AI and blockchain. And yeah, great combination, enjoying it very much. Fun fact about me, so my PhD is actually in virtual worlds, virtual communities, so a really cool topic. And I'm a really mean assembler coder, but I can only do that on Commodore 64 tech stack. And I started at age 11, and I'm still doing it today. So actually this summer, after 3 years, I finally finished another demo part. It's out there for those who know where to find that with the group of Atlantis.
Thank you very much. Domingo.
Hi, everyone. I'm Domingo, CTO of Infomineo. We are a consulting company, and my work is mainly related on building the AI infrastructure to support all the agents and interesting things that we are building. And a fun fact about me, after my university time, when I stopped doing sport for many years, when I started doing sport again, I could not finish a 10K run, but after 5 years, I finished my first Ironman. So that's
nice, love it. And now you're doing three Ironman,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Nice, perfect. So that was already a good start, given the fact that only behind stage I said, guys, please provide a fun fact. So I really liked it. Let's kick it off with the foundational infrastructure for AI, right? So as I mentioned, like building the house. Christina, you go first. When usually large organizations, also large corporates like us, when we think about AI, we always forget about infrastructure, okay? So what is the typical thing that you usually overlook, and where should you actually begin when we say, okay, let's speak about the real foundation that we need?
Thank you. I think I want to highlight 3 different key areas, and the first one is clearly electricity, right? So if we're looking at the latest figure from International Energy Agency, they clearly laid out that global electricity supply for AI data center is actually going to be projected more than double what's happening now by 2025. So we're talking about something like 945 trillion like a terawatt hour per annual, which is quite significant. And that's actually the same amount of electricity consumed by Japan every year, which is number 5 in the world. So how can we address the electricity supply is a major issue. Consider currently there is about 1.2 billion people in the world who are suffering from what we call energy poverty. So they either have no access to electricity or have less of 4 hours a day for electricity access. So does that mean we want to develop AI infrastructure at the same time where a large majority of our fellow citizens, especially in Africa and Global South, are suffering? That's the first thing I think we need to address. The second area is actually mentioned by lots of speakers already, is data. And I remember Jack Ma, the founder of Alibaba, once said, data is a new oil, but you will only analyze it to produce value. And we know there is a very important issues many organizations facing worldwide. So about only 12% of the data are business critical, while about another 25%, they are either repetitive or obsolete or trivial, while the rest, 55%, is what we call dark data. They spread out across the whole organization between different departments and unanalyzed. But the cloud space they occupy, just sitting there, quietly, costs the world economy $3.3 trillion a year. So that's clearly not sustainable, and there's lots of issues we need to figure out how to address the data storage, because I think currently the data storage, we are creating each year is about 175 gigabytes. How do you measure 1 gigabyte? It's like a billion terabytes. Most of us got our laptop maybe like 1 terabyte. That's 175 billion of laptop we are creating each year. That's the kind of data. And that's going to be increased 12 times by 2035. So we need to also thinking about effective data governance. And the final thing I think all of us need to pay attention is the environmental impact, especially ESG compliance. We know that the Cornell University predicted the research and highlighting that the data center water consumption can reach 6.6 billion cubic meters by 2027, which will be the equivalent of water consumption of Denmark 6 times more. And we all know that Denmark is famous for the Little Mermaid. Imagine the Little Mermaid will be running short of water, and she will never be able to swim all the way to rescue her Prince Charming. That would be very unromantic, right? But on a more serious note, according to the latest figure from the United Nations, by 2050, 2/3 of the global population will be suffering from water scarcity. So we're talking about 6 billion people in the world will have water shortage situation. So we need to address that as well. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Christina. And if you look at the capacity constraints that are coming from electricity, but also from the data storage, I would actually like to hand it over to you, Domingo, because recently there have been a lot of reports as well stating that even AWS and Google are having capacity constraints, are getting to their limits. So based on your enterprise perspective, how significant is this challenge, and what does it actually mean for companies planning then those new AI initiatives now?
So following what Christina said, I think we are experiencing right now for the first time a scarcity of resources in the cloud providers. Before these times, you kind of think that are infinite resources, you just click and you have everything ready real time. And now we are facing that, and if we want to have some, for example, some internal projects to deploy some LLMs internally, we are facing this thing right now where we don't have the resources, you have waiting time for having them. And I think it's related of all this data created, all these AI resources used by everywhere, this bubble of AI around the world, so everything is related. And from our company perspective, what we are trying to do to overcome that is to go to multi-cloud provider approach. We used to be with only one, now we are putting a routing layer. And also after some discussions that I have here in this summit, maybe even going from a distributed solution as well to try to get more capacity when we need it.
Okay. Thank you very much. So within this entire discussion about foundational structures for artificial intelligence, there's also, again, new fascinating work happening around that entire topic of blockchain-enabled infrastructure and how this can actually support. And one of the topics that popped up were the drone highways. So, Daniel, over to you. Can you explain a little bit how potentially blockchain can enable this kind of interconnected autonomous systems, but also what the infrastructure requirements might be in order to move it to the next level?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the exciting part is we are all here probably at the pinnacle of futurists, right? I mean, Cardano Summit is a great example that people come together that already think and live in the future. The harsh reality is, if you would sample globally the boardrooms, right, of large corporates and the political leaders, it's looking pretty bleak. Few of them have a vision how the future actually will look like and how the infrastructure for this future should look like. Yet they call probably 95% of all shots on this planet. And this is something very worrying. And as an example, drone highways is an emerging theme, but it's fair to assume that in 10, 15 years, it's going to be the new normal. We will have in large cities, let's call them mega cities, it's going to be the best means to sustainably, efficiently transport things from A to B across these cities, and of course also in disparate land. Yet, very few people have a vision of how these drone highways will look like. When I say drone highway, and as a fund we're investing in this technology, there's pockets of excellence all over the world in that theme. A drone highway is not something that you will naturally see. It's just kind of a funnel that is defined by millimeter in the sky, and then drones are enabled to use that corridor in the air to fly. In a city of the future, you will have multiple drone highways in the sky by probably importance structured. So there will be one for emergency services, police, ambulance. There'll be one for transporting heavy cargo load. Already today, if you were at Smart City Barcelona, you will see they have load-carrying drones. The Chinese are way on the front on producing these that can carry 100, 200 kilos of concrete across the city. In Switzerland, the roads are congested when construction's happening by all these trucks delivering concrete. In the future, that will fly around. We have drones that deliver your pizza, and we have even human-carrying drones. So if I would design that city, I would create different highways and not intermingle that. But to have that vision and define today what is the infrastructure we need in terms of data, there's AI involved because the drones, thankfully, will not be guided by drone operators with a joystick. They will be autonomous. And in our view, and this is our firm also investment hypothesis, we need digital identities of these drones. You want to know who is responsible for that drone to fly from A to B, who is maintaining it, what is it carrying, what is, et cetera, et cetera. You need this ID, but you also have transactions happening. Maybe the drones land on themselves for energy fill-up, a little boost to the battery. All these transactions are going to happen automatically. And if I were to design that, I would make blockchain a very foundational layer of all that. Because as we all know, from a cybersecurity standpoint, from a reconciliation standpoint, from microtransaction standpoint, there's so many benefits that blockchain technology has. But the challenge I see going forward is that our leaders in the world lack knowledge on AI, they lack knowledge on blockchain. They probably don't know much about drone and drone highways. So there's lots of education that needs to happen in the future.
But you're touching base on a very interesting topic when it comes to security and then data that is going to be used, right? And maybe we can go a little bit deeper on this one, because you've also been a strong advocate on warning companies about not sharing blindly data into AI LLM algorithms. From your perspective, what do you think are like the typical critical mistakes that the large corporations or organizations do with regards to data handling, specifically also for this use case?
Yeah, so if you talk today to cybersecurity experts, and we have one or two in our team, it's rare to find a cybersecurity expert who is big on data, big on AI, and big on blockchain at the same time. You rarely find this caliber. But once you bring this together, you will realize that what's happening right now is very irrational, is very dangerous, because a lot of corporates and governments are so hyped up from the current. I mean, we're in a bubble, right? We acknowledge we're in an AI bubble. They're so hyped up that they start throwing data randomly into cloud services, just that LLMs can train on it, inference, etc. And no one's really thinking about what we thought about 10 years ago, you know, data security, which data should have access control. And in a couple of years, we'll see major exploits when suddenly people will find out, oh, that model was trained with data that was strictly confidential. How comes he knows all the family names of all the children, of all the employees, and all that stuff? So we're running here at 200 miles an hour into a brick wall. I hope it's not thick enough. But we're going to come to that point, and in our hypothesis, again, blockchain is the secure layer in a data infrastructure for AI, because AI cannot manipulate it. We already see early signs of AIs becoming, let's say, creative in managing the data how they want it. And blockchain is thankfully immutable and can provide that secure cybersecurity layer. With the drones, we don't want an AI to reflag what the drone is doing and where it's flying to and who owns it. And these type of things, again, if I were the chief architect, I'd put it all on blockchain data. High performance, scalable, and yeah, you have a really high immutability or maximum immutability compared to any cloud repository.
Okay, thank you. Christina, from your perspective from the Metaverse Institute, do you see any other technologies that could help securing the data as well, in addition to like blockchain, what Daniel just mentioned?
I probably were talking about the emerging technology that can address some of the challenges I have identified for us before. And I guess the first thing regarding data storage, there is a very promising new technology which has been tested at laboratory at this moment. It's called synthetic DNA. What that means is, I'm sure many of you have seen the movie Jurassic Park, right? And you might remember how the whole story started. It's basically scientists extract the DNA through a drop of blood stored in the amber, which was, been there for more than 1.5 million years ago. And that's how durable DNA is as a data storage mechanism. But what was really interesting is synthetic DNA as a storage is also extremely I would say carbon emission free, because it's like a biomedical, right? So that's the beauty. It's carbon emission free, and currently for a lot of data storage facility, roughly about every 10 years we need to change that, because its duration is not sophisticated enough. And also another really great thing is the storage capacity in terms of intensity of DNA is 10 million times more than any existing storage capacity we have. And there is a very interesting analogy. So by one of the top leaders in the world, an MIT professor, he said, if we want to store the whole world data, we only need this cup. That's how effective it is. So what we are talking about is carbon emission-free data storage at scale, and also it's extremely durable, and also it solves a lot of issues we're talking about here. So I think this is quite promising. The second areas, a lot of us probably already discussed to address the electricity supply issue. Perhaps the most effective solution is nuclear. Yeah, because we all know that data center will require 24/7 electricity supply, and at this moment, which means that it needs to be always on. And at this moment, nuclear reactor operates at a capacity of about 92.5%, and the natural gas is 56%. and the solar panel is 25%. So from that perspective, it's really cool. And also, again, it's pretty much carbon emission free. But the challenge is, a lot of people will still have the impression that what if there is a leakage of a nuclear power plant next to my door? So we definitely don't want that. But the beauty is this year, actually, it was in China. They have came out with the first commercially power plant nuclear thorium reactor. What that means is it's very powerful in the regard that molten salt reactor is near zero chance of melting down, so no one will be worried about they are going to have a nuclear radioactive issues closing to where they lives. And also it produces 90% less nuclear waste, with only 3% long-lived radioactive waste. So it's very safe. So I guess that provides a really effective solution for all of us, because I know there's huge debate about nuclear fusion, but it has been there for many, many decades. We always say it's another 10 years before we can commercialize that. So I think that's the second really exciting breakthrough. And the third area, we're talking about how to address the water shortage as a result of data center. The most effective solution is actually in the space, because we know the reason that the water will use to cooling down the data center is because of the temperature. But in the outer space, it's like minus 270 degrees Celsius, close to absolute zero. So there is already major experiments championed by the European Commission. And I know we got someone from Orange here yesterday, right? The telecom communication company. So they have put together a group of HP, Airbus, Orange, etc., to looking at the feasibility of putting data center in the lower orbit to make it work economically, technologically, and culturally. And they have proved that it's actually possible to do that. So now the European Commission has planned to put 13,000 building blocks of putting data center in the lower orbit, which I think is going to address the major issues on ESG compliance and the water shortage for the planet.
Okay, so to quickly summarize this, we have the blockchain as an underlying security layer for the AI. We have additional technologies, or not technologies, but we do have the synthesized data that you mentioned, the nuclear power plants for the electricity shortage, plus moving the data centers into space in order to deal with the water shortage. If I'm now going to ask you, Domingo, you are developing internal LLMs, right, in order to protect that data privacy piece. If you hear blockchain as an underlying layer and the other three approaches that we just learned about as additional technologies, how would that help you? But also, how does this approach differ from using, for example, public cloud models like the ChatGPT, etc.? And do you think of any other infrastructure considerations you might need besides those?
So my answer is not going to be as interesting as drone highways and data centers on this space. So for sure, it's more on the tomorrow implementation. So yes, we are building these internal LLMs, and we are facing these scarcity problems. But we are doing that for the security perspective of not sharing data with the commercial models, because we know that even we have agreements that they are not going to use the data for training and so on. At the end, the moment that you lose control of your data, you don't know what's happening there. So that's why we are doing that. And I think we can take advantage of all these things, like blockchain for making sure that the data is not modified, or if we are able to do all this cool stuff, then I guess that the cost of the computing cost will be lower and the scarcity will disappear. So I guess we will take advantage of all these benefits for sure. And then also for ESG thing, I was more thinking about maybe building the data centers in places where you have more solar energy or renewable energy, but of course there are some other alternatives. So for me, the benefits of that is everyone will have access to computing costs without the increasing cost that we are having right now in terms of scarcity.
Okay, so let's stick a little bit more to that sustainability topic. And we already heard a few approaches on how potentially solve it, right? But I would like to get Daniel's opinion as well, because blockchain in general, we discussed it yesterday in a few sessions as well, is always criticized for its high energy consumption. And what I learned now, I think Cardano is not high in energy consumption. But how do you reconcile the role of that technology then for AI and with the approaches we just heard, where we're not there yet in order, not completely, to move data centers into space, etc. What's your take on how it can contribute to a more sustainable future?
I'm very relaxed about that because factually, what Christina said, there are already solutions out there. I hope someone from the German government is here attending this wonderful conference because this is a country that banned an entire technology, which is maybe really short-sighted. But we're actually lucky in the blockchain space that AI came along with their wonderful LLM training because if you look at the statistics, that if you combine all the data centers globally, the energy consumption they have, especially then training on chips, is massive. We're already dwarfed. But at the end, I really believe in a singularity vision of abundance. We have enough energy on this planet if we harvest it right. The sun is shining all the time. There's places where there's always wind. I'm also for nuclear reactors if they're, let's say, new, modern, innovative, and well-designed. In Switzerland, we banned the new building of new nuclear reactors. So we're running our nuclear reactors from 1960 and plan to do this for another 20 years. As a techie, I would say it's insane. Just build it new, right? We also don't like to work on computers from the 1960s. But I think we will get there anyway with technology. And I also like the vision that Christina just outlined with the data centers in the sky. If those of you who read William Gibson's Neuromancer, right, one of the foundational books even before Neil Stephenson, and he spoke about that. He said, we're going to have orbital satellites, communication, data storage, networks. It's a great idea, and someone's going to do it. And if no one does it, probably Ellen will, right?
Okay, no, that's a good one. But listening to it as well, and you also not being concerned, one thing that always pops to my mind lately that I'm sometimes a bit concerned about is that entire bubble that has been created around AI infrastructure. If we again take that example, Christina, of data centers in space, etc. I've seen a lot of startups lately seeking funding that are going into that space tech area. Do you think we have actually a infrastructure bubble as well from a VC investment perspective? And do you think it's going to burst anytime soon?
That's a great question. Let's firstly looking at the current global landscape of economy. So according to IMF, the global economy is currently valued at $105 trillion. But national government debt is $97 trillion, which means we are 92% in debt, which is a little bit problematic, as you can see. But at the same time, what was really striking is there is a new thing a lot of us start to talk about on a more regular basis: tokenization of real-world assets and traditional finance instruments. And the Standard Chartered clearly highlighted that this tokenization opportunity is $30 trillion by 2034. But also, what was even more striking is the Bank for International Settlements, based in Switzerland. They control about 95% of the global, GDP. And currently, they are running a very exciting project called Agora, where 7 central banks, together with 41 private entities, including MasterCard, Visa, SWIFT, lots of different banks, are looking at how to use tokenization of central bank deposits linked with commercial bank deposits to support effective international payment settlements, which is quite crucial. But also, what's even more exciting recently is I noticed that in Africa, there has been some successful pilots looking at using tokenization to address heavy national government debt with quite effective results. And the most recent development in the space is actually through NASDAQ. We all noticed that in September, the president of NASDAQ actually filed for SEC approval for them to approve the capability of tokenized shares to be traded in NASDAQ, which currently has 11 billion shares traded daily, valued at more than $500 billion. So what that means is this kind of instruments we should utilize to support the overall AI infrastructure, climate financing, and lots of other things, which can be quite exciting. And I think Cardano should play a leading role in that because you guys are really rigorous on the overall quality and infrastructure compared with lots of other like blockchain technology. And going back to your question about how much bubble we're in now, personally, I'm very much a fixed person, so I look at the figures and say where we should go. And I wouldn't say we are in the same kind of situation as the .com, like bubbles. And the reason for that is if you're looking at the current profitability of major tech giants, say Microsoft or NVIDIA, they have 14% profitability ratio compared with the .com bubble situation. And also, if we're looking at PE, of most of the AI-related shares in the stock market, currently is about 31 times, where the .com bubble is about like 60 times in 2000. So I'm less concerned in that regard, but we also need to bear in mind that both Bank of England as well as the CEO of JP Morgan, Jamie Dimon, has highlighted the potential risk if we're only focusing on the major infrastructure, especially chasing the so-called artificial general intelligence without immediate return for financial investments. We don't know how long this kind of bull can be lasting. That's why I think maybe we should look at the other side of the world in China. What they have
Christina,
been doing.
sorry, I'm going to cut you short on this one because we're going to run out of time, and I'm sorry for that. But just to summarize it for the audience, okay? So from an infrastructure perspective, if we take the German shell construction again of the robo when you build a house, so we covered the foundation infrastructure, we covered electricity, we covered constraints, but also the, let's say, the VC world and the capital on how it can actually help. We're going to close out with a 20-second last answer, and I would like to give it to you, Domingo, because we spoke a lot about technical infrastructure and how this is going to be handled in the future. What do you think about the human element, the human factor, and how are we actually going to ensure the skills and the education? Because at the end, everything that is still built by humans.
Yeah, so we've foreseen a problem with the massive usage of AI in our people, mainly in the juniors, because if you over-rely on it, there are already some studies that you lost critical thinking, your brain learns less than if you do it manually or like we are doing before, so we know that. We don't have the answer, but we try to be in our company. We changed the term of human in control, human in the loop for human in control to make sure that it's AI who is helping the people, it's the human who are leading it, because otherwise we are going to have a problem in a few years where people are going to lose their critical thinking mindset. So that's something that I know a lot of people is working on. We are doing the same in our company and trying to get the most of the technology, but without damaging our future ability to think and to do critical or have innovative ideas as well.
Okay, thank you very much. This was it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For modern businesses,